In this tutorial, we'll demonstrate how to take and do time span coding for qualitative coding in the qdap package. There are two other approaches to qualitative coding. Both involve coding words. The first one is a CSV approach to coding words, and the second one is a transcript list approach. This transcript list approach is actually very similar to the time span approach that we are going to demo today. What we're looking at here is RStudio, and this is a project template created by new project in the qdap package. And we're going to operate out of the CM data folder. So you can go there and set that as your working directory, or you could have done that from the command line with setwd. Then we'll load the reports package. It gives us these nice folder functions for easily creating directories. And we'll set the working directory to the time spans folder right here. And as a researcher, you should have some kind of coding system in place, or at least developing coding system, and maybe you're coding for different types of engagement, or you're coding different types of multimodal actions like head turns or body posture, eye gaze, things like that. And these are arbitrary codes we made up, and we'll supply them as a character vector using quick character vector. And the codes look like this. Next thing we'll want to do is output that into the time spans folder. Let's go ahead and do that. And we supplied to it first codes, then a start time. That's where you want to start coding at, and you'll notice it started at 14 here. And then an end time, 7:40, and you notice 7 at the beginning of the row here, and 40 at the end. So that's the last time, and that's the start time. And then you give it a file name. You can use txt or doc, not docx, but doc. Either one works well. So I ran it also for doc, so now we have both of those in there. I personally prefer doc, and I'll show you why in a moment. While you're at it, you can also send list templates. That's where you'll actually be transferring data from the time templates to these list templates to read back in. So we'll set the working directory now to code lists and output that, and it created a list that looks like this based on our codes. So you set codes and then a file name, and that can be a doc file or it can be a txt. That doesn't really matter. Okay, let's go ahead and start looking at what those different coding sheets are and do and how to interact with them. First, we'll look at the time spans. Let's look at the docx file. And I like the doc, not docx. I like the doc file because you can easily do orientation. You can go ahead and change the size easily. I usually use about a 7 font. And the next thing I do is change up the margins, make them pretty wide. So that it all fits. And then the last thing I do is usually change the spacing. There's a number of ways, but I use page layout before and throw in the appropriate amount, whatever I feel is necessary. And you see these little blocks at the beginning. Those represent minutes into the video. And then after that string are seconds. So this is 0 minutes in, 14 seconds here it started. This is 59 seconds into the video or audio, whatever you're coding. Here you have 3 minutes, so this is 3 minutes and 13 seconds into the time. Okay, now that makes sense, let's actually look at a sheet that I've coded up. You'll want to print that out and just code on it. Use markers or pencil, whatever works for you as a researcher. And here we have a document that I've already coded up for AA, BB, and CC codes. And I use pink, green, and yellow. I tend to use highlighters, whatever works for you as a researcher, though. And you can see that I've coded different time spans here. Once you're done with this, you need to transfer that information into something that can be read back into R. That's where the secondary folder comes into place in the CM data, the code lists. Let's open that up. And I like to have both open at the same time. And actually, let's make it a little easier to work with. Probably top to bottom's the easiest way to deal with this. Okay. And you can see that the first code here, AA is pink, is from 14 to 15. First thing I do is set my time. Started the video at 14 seconds in and ended at 7:40. That just helps keep track of everything. And the next thing you'll see are a bunch of vectors here, one for each coding. And we're on AA right now. And like I said, we went from 14 to 15. And the way that coding is done in qdap in terms of time is we would use 00.14 to represent 14 seconds in. And then we do a time span using the semicolon, or the colon, and then to represent 15, we do 00.15. And the next time that occurred was 00.22 to 00.32, comma. Then we're at 2 minutes down here, 2.27 seconds into it, colon, 2.36. And we've color coded all the pink. Now let's go on to the green, and we'll see how to do a single time span, or a single second. Here for green, it was at 0.37, so we do 00.37, comma, and leave it alone, no span. And we can go on to the next green segment, which is 5 minutes and 7 seconds in, so we do 05.07, and we would stop there. And you would continue this process until you have all your coding complete. To save on time, I already have a pre-made code list right here for 2 different transcripts. So you can do this for multiple transcripts all in one file. That's what I would go ahead and do. Just copy that as necessary and add codes. You can add codes in later. So comma at the end. Call it D equals QCV. And I use terms equals parentheses or quotation marks. We'll just do 2.40 through 7.00. Let me go ahead and save that. And we're ready for business. I'm just going to dump that into the test folder we were working in. That's the project directory we were working in, into the CM data, code lists. We'll go ahead and replace what was already in there. We'll replace that. And now we're ready for the next step. We've coded. It's time to read it in. And to read it in, we just source that code list. And you could have sourced a doc or a text file. You source it. One thing I did forget to mention, when that file first comes out, it looks like this, where list is at the beginning. You need to go ahead and assign that to something. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Notice here we assigned list to time 1, maybe transcript 1 or whatever that is, transcript 2. And when you read it in with source, those will be the objects that the list is assigned to. So that's what it looks like. Time 1, time 2. They're really not anything pretty to look at. The next step is to transform this into a long format, something that looks nice. And for that we use CM underscore time to long. And we can put in there both of the lists that we just created for 2 different transcripts. You could do just one if you want, and we'll look at that in a second. And then use vname for time, and that'll keep track of this is the first time, this is the second transcript. I mean, you could call it transcript, you could call it whatever you choose to, but we'll call them time. And we had a problem here. You can see that it says that in that piece I added in, I tried to use a colon here. It tries to detect if there's problems with your coding. Let's go ahead and fix that. use a period. We'll reread it in. And no problems this time, no error was raised or warning. We can see what it looks like. Stretched it out, and you can see in this column that's the time that was created by vname. We have time 1, and here we start with time 2. Over here we have our codes and then start and end times. Those are in seconds. These are in cron times. Both may be useful for whatever analysis you're doing. And just as a little bonus, let's go ahead and see what that actually looks like. By the way, we could have supplied just time 1 to it. Let's see what that looks like. There, it just keeps track of time 1. Let's go ahead and that .l there. Let's go ahead and use Gantt wrap to see what it actually would look like. And this is what the file would look like if we plotted it visually. It's been a tutorial on how to use qualitative coding to do time spans in the qdap package.